Welcome everyone. Before we go a deep dive and try to understand what is Agile, we go to all these ceremonies. It is important to understand that what is Agile based on? What was the origin of it? What is its relation with the Agile Manifesto? So it's important to understand that how this Agile Manifesto was created and what values everybody thought that this will bring in for everyone. What is Agile Manifesto? If we go and explore that, you can it's available free from everywhere, agilemanifesto.org. It was developed for agile software development, where it stated we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to the value. What are the four things that we talk about in the Agile Manifesto? We say individual and interactions are preferred over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. When we say that, it doesn't mean that there is not a value on the right hand side. So, what they say is that is, while there is a value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. We would discuss and explore all these four values or the four part of the Agile Manifesto in detail now. Individual and interactions, our processes and tools. This is the first part of the Agile Manifesto, and let's try to explore that in a little bit detail. Processes and tools are important. So we are not saying that no, it's not important or doesn't add value, but developing good product requires effective teamwork and interactions, irrespective of the tools provided to the individuals. So it is important to understand that processes and tools are developed for human being and it's not vice versa. The human beings or the individuals do not always follow, or they are basically not made to always follow processes and tools because they can think, they can change the processes. They can think of better ways of doing it. So if a human being or an individual is following the processes and tools blindly, then their thinking power and bringing in change, thinking outside the box, the creativity, the innovation doesn't come up well. Processes and tools are good, but the problem is that when we have too much dependency on processes and tools, that creates a problem. An example of that is the mobile phone. Such a wonderful creativity, the tool that is provided to a human being to remove the barriers of the communication with our dear ones, even in the profession. We can connect everybody using audio, using video, but if we keep dependency throughout the day on the mobile phone, it causes problem and it is causing problem nowadays to the world. And while we say no, I mean, we are not saying that no processes and tools, but there should be a balance between this. So Agile also have processes. For example, Agile have processes like DOR, definition of ready, DO done, definition of done, on the basis of which inputs and outputs of the sprints are decided. There is a process of peer review. People generally have questions about, oh, no processes in Agile. No, there is a process in Agile of doing the peer code review, and then we talk about, oh, but we talk about eliminating the need of all these metrics in the status reports. No, there are metrics in this Agile as well. For example, velocity is a metrics, burn down chart is a metrics. So we have everything as part of the processes and tools within Agile also, which can keep the balance between individual and interactions and processes and tools. So we are not eliminating processes and tools, what we promote is individuals and interactions over the processes and tools. So focus, while we have some focus on the process and tools, but individual interactions takes the value people more highly than processes or tools. It's easy to understand because it is the people who respond to business needs and drive the development process. It is easy to understand that we are following the process and tools. But if we value people more who are actually creating the product, so we always promote that customers should be in center of all the discussions before we make any decisions. But at the same time, people on the ground are the assets who are going to produce that actual value of the product for the end customer. So they should be valued. And that's the reason we promote individual and interaction. Focus on the individual and their interactions. If individuals are motivated, they would think innovative ideas and think out of box to make the product successful. That's the reason focus and attention goes on individual because they are the assets. Once they start thinking about innovative ideas, thinking out of box to make the product better, that is where the actual value comes to the customer. Processes and tools alone, without individual and interactions, are less responsive to change and unable to meet customer needs. So we always promote that processes and tools is a part of it, but they alone cannot make the difference. They should be combined with individual and interactions. So early times in the waterfall model, complete focus on the process and tools, and individuals and their motivation ignored caused the problem. So individuals' creativity was lost if there is too much dependency on processes and tools. And their hands are tightened around the process and tools. They cannot. They are either they cannot or they are not allowed to think beyond whatever is a part of the process and tools. So out of box thinking and ownership can go away if there is too much reliance on processes and tools. People may over rely on processes instead of finding best ways to create good products. One process doesn't fill all the teams or it doesn't fill all the product development team, and similar ways that no different people because the different people have different work styles. So even what, so for example, what we talk about agile have processes, but agile doesn't stop anyone to do customization in that. So we do customization in agile also. Team can customize agile process what suits for them. Some examples, some examples of agile customization are there is no role of proxy product owner. But what would a team do if a product owner hands are tight and he is too much involved in everything? What would be done for that? So for that purpose, what we do is that no, we can bring in the proxy product owners. We can bring in the proxy product owners and we can see that no, what can be done with respect to that. So proxy product owner is not a role, or if the product owner hands are tied, team can customize. They can bring in the proxy product owner. It's not only that. If your team is located throughout the geography, there is a concept that you can bring in the proxy product owner and independent location independent agile can be implemented, wherein we can have multiple product owner. I mean, this doesn't go well with the process wherein we say that no, there should be a single product owner for the tool who is the single product owner who is making decisions for the product, who is owning the backlog, who is owning the priorities. Yes, we are adopting it, but we have customized it a little bit. If the product owner is not available, to have the proxy product owner. If the team is split in the multiple geography, so have a proxy product owner to answer their queries. And if we have the concept of proxy product owner, then we can customize the agile by bringing a new ceremony, something like pre-grooming. So these things are not there in the agile, but agile doesn't stop us to customize. So as we say, one process doesn't fit all the teams or the all the product development. So these are some of the examples of the customization that agile can do. These are my guidelines, but you can customize it as per your needs. But that customization should not eliminate the value that Agile brings in. So that's an important part of it. Some of the advantages that we get from, by focusing on individual interactions, creation and creativity and innovation, learning and problem solving, sense of ownership and pride in work. We start caring about each other. Sense of responsibility is inculcated in the team. And if you see this, no, this starts with the leadership team. Leadership team is responsible for bringing in this creativity. DSUs are conducted. If DSUs are conducted well, we can bring in that culture of learning and learning together, problem solving together. Individuals start caring about each other. I'm giving you some of the examples, and by following agile or some of the ceremonies or practices, how do we inculcate this behavior? So another thing is control over self-organized team. There is too much control. People are not open up. They are not thinking beyond the box. They do not have sense of ownership and responsibility. Whereas self-organized team have all these values inculcated in them. Developers presenting these stories in the sprint review is another example, which we can think of, wherein how it's not about only a project manager or the management team is talking and reviewing with the customer. No, all of us, even the developers, we bring in and present the product increment together to the customer. Sometimes developers are doing that. When you do that, and when you get the feedback from customer that these are my problems, this is how I want needs to be resolved. So you take that feedback positively. You understand what is the value that customer wants to get, and it's a direct feedback. There is no barriers in the communication in between. That customer feedback is reaching to product owner is reaching to project manager is talking to development team. No, there is no barrier in between. That's the reason it's fruitful and developer understand. When developer understand why this change or feedback is given, and then they basically think creatively that know how it can be resolved. And most of the sometimes even if seen, we don't finger point each other of not having the skills, but team, if somebody in the team have some of the skills, team work together. If skills are lacking, then they are developed within the team by helping each other. Some of the other examples or the benefits of focusing on individuals and interactions: communication, clear, effective, quick, and efficient. Job satisfaction for the employees. When employees are highly motivated, they do not look outside. They feel satisfied in the current job. They become strong together. The sense of the teamwork. Self-organized team are the high-performing team. And as we have also discussed that no, we are not making the boundary that you'll have to follow all the processes in the agile, because then we are not following this. We are saying that no, agile processes also can be customized depending on if you are facing the problem around that. So it's important that we build around highly motivated individual, and so that they can build a good team and produce value to the end customer. The second part of the Agile Manifesto is working software over comprehensive document. Let's try to understand, what it is. Sometimes there is a misconception amongst everyone that when we are talking about this principle, working software over comprehensive document, we are asking about eliminating the documentation completely. No. Remember when we talked and we started this session, we talked about while we value the parts written on the right hand side, but we value the part written on the left hand side more. That means we value the documentation, but we value working software more. So what we say is that comprehensive, there should not be too much dependency on the documentation. It's basically that lean agile mindset that should come into play, wherein we try to see what minimum is required from the documentation perspective to add value and eliminate all other waste. And it doesn't stop there. It starts with a change in the culture and mindset throughout the enterprise. One of the example at the enterprise level is too much dependency on the status report or too many status reports floating around. Try to minimize that. Relying too much on the documentation. So if we rely too much on the documentation, what would happen? What problems it can cause? If there are changes that customer needs, first of all, we'll rely on the documentation. Okay, change that in the documentation, get it approved, and then bring it back to us. And if we have such a dependency, then this we are what we are causing is a delay in working software. Working software at the end of the sprint, as part of the product increment, is that what we show it to our end customer. Within a sprint, depending on 2 to 4 weeks, every sprint customer is seeing that working software. Whereas in some of the other models like waterfall model, comprehensive documentation, requirements was done, design was done, and then we are talking about, and customer is not even seeing your product until it comes to the user acceptance testing. And comprehensive documents leads to only documentation if a project has to be stopped in between. We have talked about in one of the earlier video, wherein if a 5-year project, because of some constraint, has to be stopped after 2 years, what you're left with is a documentation. There is no working software for the customer. So hence we say while documentation is good and important and minimum documentation should be done as required to add value to the product, working software makes more sense. And we have even seen in the even if the product is developed in waterfall kind of a model, even after that we are updating the document to make sure that the checklist, the check mark on the documentation, heavy documentation is getting up to date before even closer. I mean, PMP, the project management practices, says that before even closing the project, update all the documentation throughout the project that you have done. So you're spending so much effort on the documentation rather than spending that effort to add more value to the customer. You've deployed the code to the customer in the production. Try to analyze, what is happening. Try to analyze customer behavior in place of, just updating the document. Try to analyze and see that no, where customers might be struggling even with the product that is there in the production. And if there is a documentation and heavy dependency on documentation, then there is a healthy dependency. Then there is a dependency on the approval process also. Heavy documentation is produced and then we are focusing on somebody else to approve it for us. Then that becomes the Bible for us and we stop thinking out of the box. We stop inculcating creativity in the team. So that's where the working software is preferred over comprehensive documentation, but that does not eliminate any need for the documentation within the product. Let's try to explore what is the third part of the Agile Manifesto, wherein we say customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So, as the picture depicts, that no, we negotiate contract versus collaboratively work with the customer. Agile encourages an open-ended discussion between the customer and the development team as agile as everyone works in an agile environment. So there is what this helps is, and few of the agile ceremonies like sprint review include all the stakeholders for the feedback directly. They see the working system at the end of those sprint ceremonies like sprint review. Everybody work together to see that know what is built. Everybody work together positively to take the feedback. It's a constructive feedback given to the team, and customer sees it early, and he can. It's about giving you a requirement versus seeing the actual working system. Sometimes it may give a feedback to customer also that whatever I discussed in the requirement doesn't make sense when they see the working software. So that is where the customer collaboration, wherein everyone discuss together in the sprint review sessions to see that know how the product can be made better, whether whatever customer thought as part of the early requirements or the stories which were written makes sense for him right now. And if it doesn't make sense to him, we always welcome the changes. So changes are always welcome and accommodated as part of this. But as part of if we focus too much on the contracts, it's not only about the statement of work that we write with the customer. It's also about contract negotiation means any contract. For example, we have written We have collected the requirement, we have written the requirement, detailed requirements, 100-page requirement in the requirement phase in waterfall model. That is also a contract, because you are relying on somebody else. You have done the documentation, you're relying on somebody else to approve it for you. What is that approval? It's a contract that you are saying, now, since you have read my requirements, you have approved it, I'll stick to it. Sticking to a contract is basically causing a little pain, because then you're not changing. Your focus is only limited to the contract that has been established with the customer, in place of thinking that no, things have changed. How can we collaborate with customer to bring in more value for the team? So those are some of the things that no, we should consider as part of the customer collaboration. In place of thinking how to add value to the customer, we start thinking about obliging to the contracts. What values? If you are if you are obliging to a contract, whether in terms of the requirement document approved, or approval provided, sign off provided by a customer, or design sign off provided by a customer, relying too much on that sign off, because the sign off, how do we think? Sign off is provided. Now I would do exactly what is written here. So again, a contract negotiation. But we stop thinking about what does our customer need? What barriers do they feel? Do they face? And how can we help them to achieve their goal? So it's a focus shift. It's a focus shift on approach, that no too much relying on the contracts or the sign-offs. We start thinking out of box, that no, how can we help customer to eliminate barriers and add more value. Understanding underlying motivation of our customers, building in the product with customer involved during the development, sharing the journey of the product together with the customer, and celebrating the success together with the customer is a key part, a key part of the customer collaboration that we're looking into, wherein we don't differentiate. When we share that journey with them, when we share that journey of all the pains, or no, bringing that innovation, think out of the box, try to make the product successful, it gives immense pleasure to celebrate that success together when the product is developed. So that's a part of the customer collaboration that we always rely on. Let's try to explore what else is there in the Agile Manifesto. Responding to change over following a plan. What used to happen in the waterfall methodology, or any other methodology other than Agile, wherein change was taken as an expense? If you have got your SOW signed, if you have got your SOW signed, if you have got your business requirement documentation signed off, if you have got your design document signed off, so what are you doing? If customer after that during the development asks for the change, what do you do? There are rigorous change management procedures in place, that if you want a change during the development, you have provided a sign off, go ahead, let's do a change request, changes in the contracts, then again bring in the changes in the business requirement document, bring in the changes in the design documents, then you give me again a sign off on all of this. So it goes in the cycle. So when changes, and of course it comes with the expense. So you're talking about a change request, you're talking about some more money for the customer. So when change comes with an expense, then it pushes back customer also to ask for the change, and the team also push back, because the contract is signed off. So if change is taken as an expense, rather than team enjoy the change, to when they understand why change, if the change is understood that change is required because this is how we can make our product or the end customer successful, that is where it adds value. So changes should not, I mean, Agile, we don't push back changes, as I have talked about in the previous slides, that we welcome change. If you are giving me a change during the sprint review, that okay, this was built that way, but it is not sounding right. Let's try to make this change. This is my feedback. We go ahead, take that change positively, work on that in the next sprint, and bring it back to you in the next sprint as a part of sprint review. You are happy that though whatever I thought earlier did not work for me, I've suggested a change to the team within 2 to 4 weeks period within the sprint. They have brought back the change to me and they are showing me the working software that makes your customer happy. Agile process replace project plans having release schedule with this sprint plan. So there is always a talk about, oh, so there is no planning at all? No, there is a planning, but in place of having, year-long plans or the release schedules for the waterfall project, we have sprint planning. We do plan, but the planning is for a shorter iterations. We have a shorter iteration which is a sprint, which can be 2 to 4 weeks. We plan for this sprint. We plan stories for this sprint. We plan velocity for this sprint. Plan capacity for this sprint. We plan everything whatever is done in waterfall, but we do it in the shorter iterations. So if there is a myth that planning is not done in the agile, no, we do plan. We do plan everything. We plan for the requirement clarification, which is basically agile sprint grooming session. We do sprint planning. We do sprint reviews. We plan for the capacity. As per the capacity, we load the sprint backlog. So we do all these plannings. Planning is there in the agile, but it's only that heavy planning is not done upfront as it's done in some of the other methodology like waterfall. And other than small plans, we inspect and adapt. And if there are changes, we accommodate these changes in the upcoming sprint. That's how these small plans help. And focus on following a plan in place of thinking about what value can we can bring to the customer by bringing in change. That kind of mindset is eliminated because when we start welcoming the changes, then focus on, no, I will not do that because this is outside my boundary, this is signed off, this has been my SOW. All these things go away. Even late in the game, we if changes are brought to the team, we think of eliminating waste. We think of, how this change which is required by the customer, because we are talking to customer directly in the sprint review. Even if late in the game he's talking about a change, he's also explaining how this change will eliminate some of the waste in their process or the product, or add more value to the product. Once we understand the reasons behind that, it basically it motivates the team to bring in that change in a better way, to be open to that change. So these are some of the things in the Agile Manifesto, and it's important that because this is the foundation of Agile. Once we understand the foundation of Agile, we can actually then understand what is the value that Agile brings on paper. So with that said, thank you so much. This is what I wanted to talk about the Agile Manifesto. I'll see you in another session. Thank you.